Hey everyone, so my collection view lecture got kind of like corrupted, the recording, so I'm just gonna re-record the demo today. So yeah, let's just go into it. So if you go into the iOS textbook, section 5, lecture demo, you just download this collection view starter code. I'm going to my downloads, and here's the code. So this is where I'm going to be working in this collection view .xcode stuff. So I'm just going to rehash everything I did in lecture. So first let me run it. Let me see what it runs. Um, and yeah, so for this lecture, what we did was we went over like the header view for a couple minutes in the beginning. We went over like the code. This code is exactly the same as the demo from Monday. So we're gonna be starting off with this code, and we're gonna have I'm gonna go as far as we did in my demo, which was like just adding another collection view on top of the already existing one. So let's look and see what we have so far. It loads in time. Well, while it loads, I'll just go over like the code that I have so far. So this should all be, or most of this should be somewhat familiar. We have like an array shapes, a 2D array that holds like an array of a collection. Like it holds like arrays of arrays. Well, this array holds like in each indice another array of shapes because we have like a 2 by 2, well 4 by 4 thing of shapes here. So we have like 4 circles, 4 triangles, 4 stars, and 4 umbrellas. And as you can see, each one of these has like a little title at the top now, like a circle, triangle, star, these like title things. So first let's talk about like how these titles actually got there. So here, similar to how we registered our cell, our custom collection view cell, here we also registered our custom collection view header. And so what is this? Let me actually close out all these tabs up here. All right. So here we have this custom collection view header. So what's this custom collection view header? Let's jump to it. So it's here. The custom collection view header, almost the same as like a cell in the way it's set up, except unlike a cell, we're saying our class custom collection view header is conformed to a UI collection view reusable view, meaning this view is also just like a cell, it's getting reused. So like on the screen right now, we have 2 headers, but in total we have like 4. But at any given time, like within the life cycle of our app, we're only going to see 2 headers, and they're only going to be 2 reusable header views. Kind of like the concept with cells, we don't generate every single cell for all the cells that we have. We only generate the amount of cells that appear on the screen. Same thing with this header. We only generate um, the header views for the headers that are visible on the screen. So in this case, there are only 2 headers, so we're only going to generate like 2 header views instead of the 4 that we have total. So yeah, so what do we have in this header view? So we have a label. The label is what actually contains like this thing circle, like the text itself. We have an override in it, and we have a super die in it. Every time you override an init, you always have to call super. We say, label.font is like this bold system font of a size 20 that gives it like its font. We add it to our subview, this header view. We add it to the subview of this header view, and then we call setup constraints. And in setup constraints, our label is basically constrained to fit the entire like header view. So its leading anchor is equal to this to views, to the super views leading anchor, its trailing is equal to the views trailing. The top anchor is equal to the top, the bottom is equal to the bottom. And we have this required init that's always necessary for any override init. And we also have this function configure. So just like a cell, we're gonna be configuring every header so that it takes in some section title, and then it sets the label's text to be that section title. So we'll see more of that when we go into the other functions. But for now, that's the whole setup of how our header view is like set up. So that's how our label is going to be there. That's how our label is going to be set up. And that's how the labels are also going to be configured. So the first line we need, of course, is like this register. We have to say collection view register collection view header self. So this is like the class type. And we have to say for supplementary view of kind UI collection view element kind section header. So this sounds like a lot, but basically what this is saying is this supplementary view is going to be of type like section header. So we know like the collection view knows that this header view, this custom collection view header is a kind of section header. So it knows that we're going to be using it for a header. That way we could implement the right functions that we need to for it, and it can have the right kind of functionality. So we also have a reuse identifier for this header view. So just like the cell reuse identifier, the header reuse identifier tells us like which header view we're talking about. And so that's why we use header reuse ID here. So that's the first line that we add. And then let's see. We also have our function view for supplementary element of kind. So this function is used to actually set up like our header view. So like almost the same idea as a cell. We say if let header is equal to collection view.dq, instead of dq reusable cell, we say dq reusable supplementary view, and then we say of kind, like the same kind that is being passed in, with reuse identifier header reuse ID, which is the reuse identifier for the header, and for index path. And we also have to like make it of type. We have to cast it to be of type custom collection view header, because that's the cell, that's a header, that's the type of header we have. Since that's the header that we defined here, this is a custom collection view header. We called it custom collection view header. That means that the supplementary view has to be casted as a custom collection view header. This way we could access this configure function here at the bottom, header.configure, because we know that this configure function belongs to this class type since it's defined here. So we have this function configure, and then in my view controller, I do header.configure, and I configure for every section in my sections array. And my sections array is defined up here. So it's a second array. This is the filters array. I mean, this is not the filters array. This is the section header array. So there's a circle, a triangle, star, umbrella, string to define each one of these sections. And let's see. Where was I? Oh yeah, here. So I'm configuring for every one of these headers. So that's the whole concept of like configuring and like setting up a header view. All we really needed to add was this. Well, we added this function view for supplementary element of kind to set up like these header views, but we also have to add this other function here at the bottom in the extension view controller UI collection view field delegate. We have to add this reference size for header in section function, which is going to tell us how big our header should be. So here I'm returning like I'm saying that like the size of my header view is going to be equal to or is going to be equal to like a triangle or a rectangle with the width the same width as like the screen and the height of 50. I could change this height to like 200 maybe, and this way you guys could see like how exactly it's actually being changed. So like as you can see, the header view now takes up all that space, and I could even like color the back of the header, that way you guys could see it even better. Let me do like background colors red. So I'm setting the background color of our header view to be red, and as you can see, it goes like it spreads to like the entire like width of the screen almost, and the height is around 200. So I'm gonna change this back to I think it's 50, just so you guys can see. And yeah, that's all it takes for a header. So like we said the header's view width was equal to the view's width. So basically all we had to implement was this function here, reference for header and section, this other function here, view for supplementary element of kind. We had to add like the header file here. And in our view controller, we also had to register that header view cell, and we had to create a header view ID. So there's only like a bit of code here that we actually added. And these functions, like every other function within our extensions for the view controller, we could just like automatically like get this function if we just type out a couple of words. So if I say view for supplementary element of kind at, and I press enter, let me do that again. So like if I just type it a bit, it already knows exactly which function I'm talking about. So I don't have to memorize like every character that I have line by line. I just got to press enter, and it already adds like this view. I already adds this function. I mean, so you don't have to worry about memorizing each one of these functions like perfectly. All you got to do is just type out a couple of words that correspond to that function, like view for supplementary element of kind, and then you get the rest of the function parameters. But yeah, like mark this. Okay, but that's it for headers. So today, what we actually want to do is we want to implement an app. We want to implement an app that has like now not just one collection view here, but another one on top to change the way that these cells are being presented, change the way that they're being filtered. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. Basically, the majority of this demo is going to be adding another collection view. So I'll just go through that, and then Alden has his part on actually implementing the filtering function that's going to change the order of the shapes. So let me change this background color to be normal again. So I just deleted the background color thing that I added, and now it's back to normal. Cool. So all right, let's get started with this demo. So we have a filter collection view here. I added this by accident. This should not have been there, but anyways, it's already there, so it's fine. So we have this other collection view, filter collection view, but we didn't actually set it up yet. So let's go ahead and try setting that up. I'm gonna add it down here. So for every collection view, it should have its own flow layout. So I'm gonna call this filter collection view, filter collection flow layout. Oh, filter flow layout is actually a better name. Layout. And also just to kind of like I guess make it more concrete exactly what we're doing. Here on the screen, here on top, where I'm like moving my mouse, this is where we're gonna add a filter and another filter and another filter and another filter. It's gonna be like a filter that it's gonna be like a collection that scrolls horizontally. That way you have multiple filters, but you could just scroll like side to side, to see the filters. Yeah, I wish I had a picture of what it looked like, but basically we're just gonna be adding another collection we have here. You'll see it in a bit, so it won't be that bad. Okay, I'm just leave this here. So okay, yeah, the first thing we want to do is create a filter flow layout, and then we want to do filter flow layout minimum. I'll just make these two things the same, so I'm actually just copy and paste this. Copy, paste. So now it's filter flow layout, filter flow layout, filter flow layout, because it should be the same kind of padding and all that. Except now, like I said, the filter flow layout scroll direction isn't going to be that vertical. It's actually going to be that horizontal because we want it to be able to scroll like from one side to the screen, from one side of the screen to the other one. So I'm going to set that scroll direction to be horizontal. Then I want to do filter flow layout section. I'm going to give it the same section instead as my flow layout. So most of this code is like copy paste. And then I'm gonna create the collection view. So filter collection view. Remember we made it earlier up here, or it's been there. And now we're just gonna give it a bit of property. We're gonna say filter collection view is equal to UI collection view. The frame of 0, because we're gonna be the ones defining what the frame is. And collection view layout, filter flow layout. So we made this filter flow layout, and we're giving it to our collection view, our filter collection view, to use to dictate how it's going to move around, how it's going to be scrolled. So now I'm going to do filter collection view. Just like before, it should be translate auto assignment as constraints has to be false, and then view register. So okay, because it's a whole different collection view, I need a whole different cell class. So I'll actually hold off on that for now, but I'll add the rest of the code. So filter collection view dot delegate itself and filter collection view dot data source. So what these two lines are saying is that all the interaction that's going on between my collection view, like the tap, like if I tap a cell and it does something, all that interaction is being handled by the self. And what is the self in this case? The self is the entire view controller. So this whole view controller is going to take care of like the actions that my filter collection view is going to have to might implement. So say for example, like I want to implement some function for when I tap like on a cell of one of my collection views, then for this function, I'm going to have to handle its action of changing like of changing some property of like another cell. Like say I want to like make the background color view black or something. When I click a cell, and that like view dot background color is equal to black, that code is gonna be written here in the view controller. Like the same thing as like the extensions that we have here that implement like functions. Those functions are there because we said collection view that data source and delegate are equal to cell, because we're telling our collection view that its properties, the way the data is being inputted into these collection views, is going to be handled in this view controller. And we're going to do the same thing, like the same thing that we did for the collection view, where we implemented those functions below. There, we're going to be implementing the same functions again for our filter collection view. But we're going to run into a bit of an issue because of that, which I'll show you guys how to handle in a bit. But first, we want to register some kind of cell class. So we don't want to register a custom collection view header cell class, because this is a filter collection view now. It's a different kind of cell. So we have to create a file, new file, local text class. We have to create a new cell file. So I'm going to call this custom filter collection view cell. And if it's not already defaulted, like maybe it's like something like this, then go scroll down and go to your UI collection view cell. So custom filter collection view cell. And that's how it should be called. And click next, create. We have our custom filter collection view cell here now. So we're gonna have a very similar setup to custom collection view header. In fact, it's almost gonna be like identical. So I'm just gonna actually copy and paste most of this code. Copy and then paste. Because we're gonna have a label. Well, we call this like, it's not really gonna be a button, it's just gonna be like collection view. So I'll just leave it as label. And then we're gonna say label.translate with a font. Oh, I mean, this actually let me actually, I'll go through writing it. So yeah, we're gonna have a label. That's the first thing we're gonna create, and then we want to override an init. And what's it called? Like a CG rect. And then we want to do super.init frame. And now we can actually start running our code. So this init is almost the same as like um as a view did load function in our view controller. So this function is going to be loaded the same, or this function is going to be ran like right when the cell is being generated. So this function is only going to run once, the init. So let me actually go back to this. Okay. Yeah, this init is only going to be run once. So we're going to do all of the setup here for our label. So I'm going to say label.translate auto resizing mask screen to false, because this label is like for a collection view, for our filter collection view. Then I guess we're just going to do content view dot add subview label. I think that's it, basically. We could change the font too. We could say like label dot font is equal to dot system font of size like 20. And now after this, we want to create a function. Of course, function setup use, setup constraints, to set up our constraints. Setup constraints. Oh yeah, it's yelling at me because I don't have the init. So I'm gonna click this error here that I'm getting and click fix, and it's gonna add this required init. Conventionally, we want to have this at the very bottom of our code since this is like the most irrelevant. So we're just gonna keep it there. And then our function setup constraints, we're gonna set up the constraints for this label, and we want it to be in the center of the screen. So we actually don't care if it's like we want it to expand like throughout to fill up the entire cell, because this is the only thing that's going to be in our cell, and we want the text also to be centered. So actually, label dot, I'm going to make the text be centered. So text alignment dot center, and this is how you center text within a label. So I centered the text, and now I want to constrain my label to fit the entire like size of my content view cell. So I'm going to say ns layout constraint dot activate. And I'm going to do label dot leading anchor dot constraint is equal to content view dot leading label dot trailing anchor dot constraint is equal to content view dot trailing. Then I'm going to constrain the top to be the top. Top anchor and the bottom to be the bottom. Bottom. And those are all the constraints that we really need. Because we only have one label, so that's all we actually need. And actually, now that we're here, this cell, just like any other cell, is going to have a configure function to configure the cell label, each one of the cell labels, because we're going to have to add a function later on that will need to configure every cell label that we have. So I'm going to say, function configure. And this configure function is going to take in, let's say like the labels are strings. So configure filter name type string. That's the name of the filter. And we're going to say label.text is equal to filter name. Because for every cell, we're going to be passing in some kind of filter name. And every label is going to set its text to be that specific filter name. So this should be all the code we need for now for our custom filter view cell. And our view controller, one of the other to-dos that I had earlier actually was to set up like this filters array. So I'm gonna set up the names of my filters. I'm gonna make it like private var filters is equal to, and like I said in my configure, this array is gonna be an array of strings. It's gonna be an array of filter names for the labels. So I'm gonna call this filter 1, and then filter 2, and then filter 3. That way I have like at least three filters there. So we have these filters, we have 3 filters. And the only reason I made it private was because Alden made the other ones private. And usually you want to make your variables within any view controller private. That way no other class could have access to these variables no matter what, because these should only belong to your view controller. So yeah, so we have these filters. So now we made the filter collection view cell. So I'm gonna say filter collection view dot register custom filter collection view cell dot self. And the reuse identifier, we didn't make one yet, so I'll make one right now. So I'm gonna say let filter reuse ID is equal to filter reuse ID. And then down here, we could say filter reuse ID. And then, oh yeah, now we could actually add like the constraints for our filter collection view. I'm gonna do ns layout string activate. So we want our collection view to be like about like maybe like 100, maybe 50 pixels like from the top, and then below that should be the other this collection view, this shapes collection view. So we're gonna add this collection view like to the very top. So I'm gonna say filter collection view. So the top anchor is for sure gonna be equal to the view dot safe area layout guide dot top anchor. That's for sure. The leading filter collection view, the leading anchor is going to be equal to the view's leading anchor with a constant of collection view padding, because that's the padding that we added up here. So it's just going to be offset a bit. Then view dot trailing. The trailing anchor is also going to have the same kind of constraint, view dot trailing, with a constant with an offset of collection view padding. Except this time it's negative because it's going in the negative x direction, which would be like, I guess this way. I'm not sure how the recording is going to set it up, but somewhere in the negative x direction is normal. And then the height, we could say, let's say it's equal to like 100 for now, 100 pixels long. Even though we usually don't like to define our heights or widths or any like property within our collection view, within our shapes to be like a constant, I think this is fine because either way, the bottom collection view is scrollable. So no matter how small your screen is, like you'll always be able to scroll down to see the rest of the collection view. It's not a huge deal. Because usually we worry that like, oh, like if I set it to be a constant, then it'll look funky like on other phones, but it won't really. If yeah, wait, what is it? Oh, I think I forgot to, okay, yeah, I forgot to add subview. So in your filter collection view, you want to do u.add subview and then filter collection view. And now I should be able to see my collection view, hopefully. Maybe not. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, we're gonna run into a lot of issues for now. But be rest assured, all of our code is fine. All filter collection view stuff is fine. Like this is exactly what we should be doing. It's just that now within our UI collection view data source functions, like say, okay, actually, let me show you. If I were to remove these two things, then it'll run. I promise it'll run. Yeah. So it's right there. Just to show you it's there. Set the filter collection view. To dot red. And actually, I need to change this collection view top anchor. It's no longer equal to the views safe area layout at the top anchor. It's now equal to the filter collection view dot bottom anchor. Because now my collection view is below my filter collection view, or it should be. And there, now looks good. So our filter collection view is up here in red. That's the space for where our collection is going to be. But now, when I implement these two selves, like these two delegate and data source, when I implement these two functions, or I mean, not when I implement these functions, when I uncomment these two lines, let's say the filter collection views delegate and data source are going to be taken care of by my view controller. When I do that, these functions down here get messed up. So like this number of items in section function, it only considers like the shapes, like these shapes below, like as like the sections that it cares about. But now we have a whole other collection view that has a whole other number of sections. So how do we take care of this like duality where we need two collection views in the same view? So that's what we're going to take care of today. And this function, all of these functions are going to have to be manipulated in some kind of way. So let's just get right into it. So, okay. I have to say like, I have to find a way to differentiate between these two collection views. Like the collection view that I'm being passed into this thing called the collection view here. So one thing I could do is I could be like, if collection view dot, or if collection view is equal to one of the collection views that we have up here, in this case, this collection view. Oops. So I can do like self dot collection view. And self dot collection view refers to this collection view that we made in the class. Another thing I could do is also give these collection views tag. I think I'm gonna do that instead because it makes more sense. So I'm gonna make the collection dot tag is equal to 0. And this one, filter collection view dot tag is equal to 1. So I gave these collection views different tags now. So now what I could do instead is I could say if collection view dot tag is equal to 1. Then if it's equal to 1, then I know it's my filter collection view. If it's equal to 0, then it's my original collection view, my shapes collection view. So if collection view that tag is equal to 0, which means if it's equal to the shapes collection view, then I want it to do the same thing that I was doing before, where it returns shapes section.count. However, if my collection view is not equal to 0, if it's equal to 1, then that means it's a filter collection view, which means that I want to return a different number of sections. How many sections am I going to have in my filter collection view? Well, since I don't really want sections in my filter collection view, I'm just going to be returning 1 because I don't need sections in this kind of filter collection view. At least that's personal preference. I don't want any sections. So I'm just going to return 1 instead. And you don't have to do like else here. You don't have to do like else return 1 because they're the same thing, basically. Like if it doesn't reach this condition, then it's just going to return 1. And if it does reach this condition, then it'll return shapes section.count and it will never reach this line. So we don't actually need to implement we don't need to implement another else. So yeah, that's the first number of items in section. That's the first function taken care of. Now we have to do every other one. So if collection view dot tag is equals to 0, then this is the shape stuff. So I definitely want to do this. And then I could do like else I want to dequeue a filter collection view cell. So I'm going to do filter collection view cell dot dequeue reusable cell with identifier. Remember, we have a filter reuse identifier for index path. And we're going to say as not a custom collection view, but now a custom filter collection view cell. And now we're going to say let filter equal to filter. Remember, this shapes array is referring to this list of shapes. The filter array that we want is this filter array up here. So we're going to say filters. We're going to say let filters equal to filters of index path dot row. And the reason we say row is because row indicates like the specific index, like not a like it indicates like the specific index of like my filter. Instead of having to worry about like two indices, like how shape says with an index path dot section and item, I could just do, or actually I could just do index path dot item, and it'll give me that one individual thing. I don't have to worry about the section. So I only care about the item, index path dot item parameter. So now I could do filter dot configure, or actually no, cell dot update or configure for this filter name filter. Because remember, filters is an array of strings. So this one filter is just going to be one string. And I'm going to configure this configure function, which is found within my custom filter collection view cell class. This configure is going to put that string within each label of my filter cell. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm saying extract the filter name from my filters array and then put it within my cell, configure it within my cell. And so that's what I'm doing here. And then once I do all of that, I can finally return my cell. So it's almost the same exact code. It's just in this case, I'm talking about a filter collection view instead of a shapes collection view. But yeah, so now actually I'm gonna have to do the same thing for this other function. So I'm gonna say, oh, I messed this up. Hold up. If let me do this first. If collection view dot tag is equal to 0 again, if the collection view is a shapes collection view, then I want to return the shapes.count. Else, I want to return 1 because that's how many sections we want. In the previous function here, in this function, I did not read it correctly. It says number of items in section. And the number of items in section is actually equal for us, for the filter view, the number of items in section is equal to the number of items we have total. Since we only have one section, then that one section better contain every single item that we have. In this case, the items that we're talking about are within our filter array. So we're going to be returning filters.count instead of 1. Because filters.count is going to tell me the number of items that I want in my section. And I say filters.count because we only have one section. So that's the only thing we have right now. So, sorry. So that's that for setting up the number of sections, for setting up the cell. And now what we also want to take care of is making sure our header doesn't get confused when we're talking about different collection views. So we also have to implement this if collection view dot tag is equal to 0 here, because if it's a shapes collection view, then we definitely want a header, right? We want this. And if it's not a shapes collection view, if it's a filter collection view instead, then we don't do anything. We don't set up a header. We don't want a header. So it's just going to go, it's going to hit this return. It's going to return an empty header. Same thing here. So well, this is actually a different thing, but this is a shape of the cell. So actually that is equal to 0. If the if the collection view is a shape, then is a shape cell, then I want to give it this kind of shape, this kind of cell shape. However, if it's something different, then I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna say the width of my cell for my filter view is gonna be equal to the views.frame.width divided by 2. And then I'm just gonna return, I'm gonna say width and height. Let's just say like 50 or something. Okay. So if it's a shapes collection view, then I'm returning this size. If it's a filter collection view, then I'm returning this size. So these are two different sizes because I want them to look different. I don't want the cells to look the same. And then for here, for my collection view reference size for header and section, same thing. If collection view dot tag is equal to 0, then I want to do this. Else I want to return CG size with 0, height 0. Because only if my collection view is a shapes collection view do I want to give the header a size. If it's not, then I don't want to give the header any kind of size. I don't even want a header for my filters collection view. So I don't want a section header. So now after I implemented all those like changes to my functions, I should see some changes to my collection view. Now it's scrollable. Now I have my 3 cells here. But it looks a little wonky, and I'll fix that right now. So first, my filter collection view dot background color is still red. I don't really want that anymore. So I'm just going to delete this. Delete. Cool. And then in my custom collection view, where is this filter? Yeah, here. Actually, I'm gonna give the label a background color. That way we could see the color of the cell. So I'm gonna give it like system blue. And then when I run it, now it should look like this. Now it looks a little better. So cool. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I guess I need this. So this is it for the collection views demo. So we implemented these 2 collection views. Now we have 2 collection views on the screen, which is pretty cool. Alden is going to be going into how to actually give these filter buttons functionality. And yeah, that's it. The filters might be different. Like the names of the filters might be different depending on what Alden names them, but they should be relatively the same. So hopefully it still makes sense. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask on Ed or email us. And yeah, thanks so much for coming to lecture. Sorry that the demo recording got messed up, but I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thanks.
Okay, so in terms of the actual coding demo, I believe this is where we left off from the live demo, where we got our 2 collection views on the screen. Our top one here, which is our filter collection view, and then our bottom one here, which is our main collection view. And both of those are working and updating. Just as a quick review, these were the lists that I was talking about. This basically, in its entirety, is the model, right? This is the data that's correlating one-to-one with the different views we have. And then all of this functionality here is basically to have, when our collection view needs data, it requests that data from our view controller, and then our view controller bridges the gap. Just to give a live example of one thing that I was talking about in the hand drawings, which is that we can use tags as opposed to directly comparing this equal to. So if I wanted to say like my main collection views tag, I can set that equal to 0, or I can set that equal to like collection view tag, and I can make this a variable up here along with our other constants. So let collection view tag equal 0, and then while I'm at it, I can say let filter collection view tag equal to 1. And then when I'm setting the tags, I can set my collection views tag and my filter collection view dot tag equals filter collection view tag. And again, these are just integers, so it's easier to deal with, like, I'm gonna tag this as an integer. And then down here in all of our data source and delegate functions, wherever we have this if let collection view equal self dot collection view, instead I can just replace that with if collection view dot tag is equal to collection view tag. And I think this becomes an easier way to actually manage the figuring out which collection view is which, especially when you get bigger apps and you can do more interesting things with this tag. Like, for example, I can make I guess, yeah, a good example is if you have a lot of collection views or any other type of view like this, you can do this tagging system with buttons that all target the same function. Then I can make them like in order 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can use that number to represent something else elsewhere. I guess it's just an interesting way to an interesting different way to differentiate the views. Nice. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. I think the main goal that I wanted to cover in this demo is dealing with this collection view delegate stuff down here. So the collection view delegate, first I'm gonna just implement the actual delegate. So we extend the view controller with the collection view delegate, and in this delegate, the one function that we want is our collection view did select item at. So if I double click, I get collection view. We can tell which collection view just got clicked on, and we can tell which item just got clicked on because of the item path. So in here, I can say if my collection views tag is equal to the filter collection view tag, then that means that we know that one of the filters got clicked as opposed to one of these collection view items down here. I can get the actual item, so variable item is just going to be the index path dot item. And if I wanted to get the actual text inside, I would use this array here. So again, this corresponds one-to-one with this array. So I'll just take this array and I'll jump back down here and I'll index it by this filters here. And just for demonstrations, if I have this print statement where I print out the item, then anytime I click here, you can see nothing really happens, but if I click on these filters, you'll see that filter 1, filter 2, and whichever filter I click on gets printed out. Nice. So the whole goal of this, again, I'm going to make it really simple. I'm going to just make it switching the order, or switching out the first one with whichever one, like filter 1 will switch it out with whichever section is in the first part, filter 2 will switch it out with whichever section is in the second part, and so forth. But to do that, and also just to keep my code clean, I'm going to separate out another function in our in our main view controller. So here we have this to do add reorder function. I can say function reorder, and here I'm going to just take in an integer. I'm going to reorder I'll just say value. Reorder from value integer, and this will represent either 1, 2, or 3, and then the two things that we have to implement are changing the model and then reloading the collection view. And just because this is pretty easy, I'm gonna write the reloading the collection view right here. So the reloading will just be like collection view dot reload data. So after we've updated the model, calling this function will tell the collection view, hey, basically reload everything in here. But right now it won't do anything because we haven't changed the model. But once we change the model, this will update it. And then again, down here, this is where I want to call the reorder function. So reorder, and then I'm going to pass in an integer. What I want this integer to represent is I want it to represent which section we're going to reorder with, right? So if we like want to switch out this triangles and we want to say the first section we want to make it the 0th section, then I want to pass in a 1 and so forth. And because I guess filter 1 will switch out the first and filter 2 will switch out the second, I can just use the index path for that, right? So I can say index path.item plus 1. And then I actually don't even need these variables. That was just for demonstration. This index path.1, again, if you're clicking on this filter 1 button here, that'll evaluate to 0. So we want 1 because 1 will represent this, and then we'll switch that out. Nice. And then the last part, changing the model. So I'm gonna just do something really jank, and I'm gonna basically take our lists, add something to the front, and then delete at the next and then so I'm going to take the list. So let's say I'm switching out with triangle. I'll add triangle to the front, so we'll have a duplicate triangle, and then I'm going to delete this triangle at the back. And the way I'm going to do this is, so like let's say I'm switching the headers. Did we call it headers? We called it sections. Sections, I'm going to insert the new element at, again, we want to replace the first item, and this new element is just going to be the sections at our value, right? So if our value is 1, we're taking the item in the first section. I'm going to actually just copy this just for reference. Cool. So if our value is 1, we're taking this triangle, we're inserting it at 0, which means we've added the duplicate. And then I'm going to just remove sections.remove at, and instead of value, it's now going to be value plus 1 because we've added something to the front. So now the first element is circles instead of triangles. So we just want to delete this guy. So we delete that, and then that updates our sections, right? The way we want it. If I run it now, you'll see that hopefully this should work, but the only thing that will update is actually the section's headers as opposed to the actual section. So if I click on this filter 1, you can see that the triangle and the circle will switch. Again, that's because we've only updated the sections list. But I can do the same thing for my actual shapes array, and I can do that here as well. So shapes.insert new element, shapes value, we're going to insert it at the first part, and then shapes.remove at value plus 1, and then reload. That should implement this filter functionality the way that we want it to. So again, now the entire section reloads. And if I do filter 2, it should swap this, it should bring this stars section all the way to the top. And nice, you can see that it'll just constantly bring the third up to the top, and it'll create a cycle. And I can do that with the filter 4, bring the umbrella and so forth. So yay, we've added some functionality to change data. I guess that's kind of a very simple demo, and that'll, yeah. yeah, I mean that's the kind of the simple demo that we wanted to complete.